But I'm going to ask one of my goddaughters to come up first and read from a script on a Yoruba oral libation, and then I will pour a water libation.
Hello everyone, my name is Leah Gordon. My African name is Abba Asukra. Omi Tusu, fresh water. To sprinkle the water on the floor 3 times. Ona Tutu, fresh in the road. Ile Tutu, fresh in my house. Tutu Gun, fresh in the ancestors. The shells in the clockwork's motion. Kosi Pu, may death be no more. Kosi Ofo, may loss be no more. Kosi Eyo, may tragedy be no more. Kosi Aru, may disease be no more. Kosi Fitugo, may nothing be overwhelming. Kosi Alumba, may there be no disrespect. Shells in the top. King Khan Mashe, name the ancestor. Name the elder, Professor Smalls. I ask for the support of Professor Smalls. Iba Ashe, my ancestors, my late grandfather. I pay homage to my late grandfather. Fun ni ire, bring my fortune good. Fun mini owa, bring me abundance. Fun mini alafia, bring me peace. Funmini Okoban, bring me wisdom. Funmini Agarawa, bring me the power of prayer. Funmini Idea, bring me stability in my home. Funmini Ifa, bring me spiritual guidance. Ire, ire, ire. Good fortune, good fortune, good fortune. Ashe, may it be so.
When we pour a libation, at home they use strong spirits, usually gin or palm wine. We use water on this side because water is one of the strongest liquids in the world, because without it, we die. Without it, everything on earth dies. But when we pour libation, we say we're pouring libation to the ancestors. But you always first raise your water, the libation to the divine. The divine is the only thing that exists in African culture. When we come tomorrow and I break down religion for you, in every African language, there's one concept for God, and it means every and all things at once, the totality of creation. Everything else is nothing but expressions of aspects of that one thing. Nothing else exists but that one thing. Other religions have gotten it wrong, and I'm going to show you how they've gotten it wrong, because if it did, you would not be in this room, because your life would be what you want it to be, and you have no need to come listen to nothing I've got to say. You're in this room because all that stuff we all been doing don't friggin' work. Now, back to libation. Libation, when you pour to your ancestors, what you've got to know is that you're pouring to yourself. Ancestors, mother, father, 2 people, grandparents, 4 people, great-parents, 8 people, great-great-parents, 16 people, great-great-great, 32 people, and on and on. All of that pyramidal, ancestral, genealogical pool deposited itself not in you, but deposited itself as you. That one little word, in and as, make the complete difference. Your mama and father did not put that egg and sperm deposit themselves in you. You are your mother and your father. And they, having done all of the others I just mentioned, mean you are the sum total of every ancestor you've ever had. Everything that ever was in them is in you. So when you pour this libation, you're pouring it to the ancestor in you. You're referencing the one outside of you so that you can make yourself recall. So you can bring that memory. It is the loss of your African memory that don't allow you to imagine how you can really be free again. And if you don't restore your memory, you'll never know how to restore freedom. So we're going to pour to all of the great ancestors we lost, not in the Middle Passage in the Atlantic, but the Middle Passage in the Trans-Sahara slave trade run by the Arabs and the Muslims for 1,500 years before 1492. Ashe? We're going to pour for those millions in the Trans-Indian Ocean slave trade that died before 1492, who was sold into India, who was sold into China, who was sold into Indonesia, who was sold into the Caucasus Mountain, who was sold into Europe. And then we pour to the millions that died in the last 500 years because of the transatlantic slave trade. Then let's pour for the great ones who've come among us to try and help us find our way back. So we pour first to the Honorable Messiah Marcus Garvey. We pour to the great Nanny of Jamaica. We pour to Harriet Tubman. We pour to John Clark. We pour to Dr. Ben. We pour to Dr. Shashi McIntyre. We pour to Kwame Nkrumah. We pour to Patrice Lumumba. We pour to Nelson Mandela. And we pour to all of those young soldiers who fought in the 60s. Zaid Shakur, the Mamba Shakur. Zaid Shakur was the husband of Asada Shakur, who was killed on that day. And we pour to them for giving their lives. We pour to all the young soldiers, whose name we don't even know, who was in this movement. Because we get a tendency to pour to the great ones and the great names, but there would be no great ones without the soldiers that was out there with them. We pour to Dr. Martin Luther King. We pour to Malcolm X. But both of them were surrounded by the youth. And what our youth have to learn, you have nothing without your elders. There's a foolishness that's occurred in our ranks that the youth said, well, the youth are going to do. The youth has never done. The youth, under the guidance of elders, have done. And without those two things, you have nothing. And with that, we pour to the spirit of the earth, the ecology, to the spirit of the cosmology. Because our life and our culture and our tradition is about understanding ecology, cosmology, and the role of the human being in its interrelationship with both. Without an understanding of that, you have nothing. The only law of God is the laws of nature. Anybody else that come up with any other law, they done counterfeited something. So we need to start learning again how to be human again, because what the European took away from you is your human beingness. Ashe, ashe, ashe.
Yes, 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 yes. I was a little bit disappointed though I see people like this. It's yours. That's why they banned it in Trinidad and Trinidad. And that's why we make the drum pan. We get the empty drum pan and make the steel pan so they couldn't even kill the drums. They used to do so many things. I want you to give me half a second beat, and then I want to see this audience move a little bit. Move your shoulder, move your feet or something. But let's do it, give it half a second, let's go. This is one of our rituals. We want to bring up Sister Nyambi. We're going to ask you to all rise. We're going to sing the singing of the African National Anthem. And feel free to sing along.
Ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let us rejoice. See rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling seas. Stony the road we trod, bitter the chastening rod, felt in those days when hope unborn had died, but with a steady beat hath not a weary feet come to the place on which our fathers died. We have come over a way that with tears have been watered. We have come treading the path through the blood of the slaughtered, out from the gloomy past, till now we stand at last, where the bright beam of our black star is cast. So lift every voice and sing when the earth they ring with the harmonies of sweet liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Yeah.
Your supports around you. Somebody has to push those thousands of slides. You got that good. You're ready. Are you ready? Yeah. I see that man in the hat, man. He ain't ready. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Yeah, if you're ready, we got his water here. We got to make sure he has his water. We're going to open it up.
So, thank you so much. And thank this extraordinary organization for inviting me to Canada. thank you for coming out today. I was in Jamaica in July and I couldn't find a Jamaican store in the mall. You're like, wait a minute, I'm in Jamaica. But everybody else on the stores except us. Something's wrong with that picture. I'm in Ghana, I'm walking through the great shopping centers that have been there for hundreds and hundreds of years, and all the products are cheap little plastic junk from China. The cloth is coming from Holland and India and other places, and we're wearing them like it belongs to us. Something's wrong with us. In America last year, we made $1.3 trillion and we gave it away to our enemy and complain about the fact that we're unemployed. That is stupid. So something is wrong with us. We got every religion in the world. We got everything. Everybody got a little piece of Africa, and ain't nobody got nothing. And the only person we're fighting with is one another. While we talk about the great enemy. But we're not taking a fight to the great enemy. We're fighting one another. We've been fighting in our households. I pour libation here, and many of our brothers and sisters in the audience who are still going to the Christian church, and there's really not that much wrong with that if you know what it is. But some would take odds with libation, but you need to just go and Google. Let me tell you how easy you can do this. Go to your computer, Google libation in the Bible, and you will see the 34th instance that libation is both mentioned and done and described in your Holy Bible. So don't get crazy when we pour libation. And you see a similar thing. See, you need to hit this big light here. Can you work this big one here? It's all right if the one in the audience right there don't work. This one, if you can get this one right here, then it will be cool. And then they can really see the visual. Yes. And I know they need that for the camera. But y'all can see this in the back, right? Yeah. Okay. We're going to walk through 300 and something slides in a few minutes. Because I want you to see the Africa that you don't really see. I want you to see the Africa of yesterday, some pieces of it, because we can't go through thousands of years. But we take little snippets from those thousands of years. And then I want you to see some of the things that we've contributed to make this society what it is today, from creating not only the desktop computer, we did that. We created the cell phone, we did that. Guess what? A black person created the internet. Guess what? A black person created the damn email. So if we just took our stuff back, they would have nothing. And we still giving them our stuff. So Sister Oshalena is going to start walking through, and every time she sees my eyes kind of look at it, she knows that's time to change. But I'm going to talk, I did this for another purpose, but it fits my purpose today. I call it the Global Pan-African Vision and African Spirituality in the Post-Civil Rights Era. Now you had a kind of a civil rights thing going on up here, and we got into the integration thing up here just like we did down in North America. And we hadn't gotten any more rewards up here than we got down in North America. Matter of fact, we lost me down in USA. We lost more down there than we had going into that foolishness. You'd be surprised. Y'all heard of Black Wall Street, right? Tulsa, Oklahoma? And we talked about how they burnt it to the ground there. But we fought in Oklahoma. We fought until we ran out of ammunition, and then we fought with the gun butts and our knives until we were killed. They didn't give up there. That didn't happen because we ran away. Nobody ran away. The men sent their women and children away, and they stayed there and they died. Okay? And guess what happened? Within 20 years, they rebuilt it all back. But nobody tells us that part of the history. You know why? Because those who are telling the story got caught up in the relations with the enemy that they call integration, and they won't tell you that Wall Street was rebuilt in Tulsa better than it was before the riots in the 1900s, and we gave it all away after the civil rights movement with our integration. And that's what killed the black businesses there as it did across America. But that wasn't the only black Wall Street. We had Little Haiti in Raleigh, North Carolina. We had Black Africa in Wilmington. They burnt both of those down. We had Rosewood in Florida. They burnt that down. We had East St. Louis. They burnt that down. We've been at war with some crazy people for a long time. Because if you want the wealth of Africa, you've got to keep the largest populations out of Africa that you don't have subdued from rising up. And that's in North America and the Caribbean. Brazil is pretty much crushed. Those poor brothers and sisters down there are really in trouble. Colombia, where we have almost 10 million of our people, they're in trouble. But in Canada and the US and the Caribbean islands, we have a certain flexibility and a freedom because we've been battling for so long. We threaten the entire Western oligarch and corporate structure, especially when it comes to the robbing of Africa. And so let's walk through this and see what happened in our history, and maybe we'll have some ideas of where we're going to go when all of this is done. If a race has no history, if it has no worthwhile tradition, it becomes a negligible factor in the thought of the world, and it stands in danger of being exterminated. That's what Dr. Carter G. Woodson told us. And he was the brother that gave us Black History Week that have evolved into Black History Month. You can keep going. I was talking about the coming of the African Union. This is the African Union headquarters in Addis Ababa in Ethiopia. Keep going. I just want you to see these visuals. This is Nairobi, Kenya. It's not jungles. It's not some little baby crying in the desert with flies in her eyes. This is Accra, Ghana, the capital of Ghana. This is Dakar, Senegal, the capital of Senegal. This is Dar es Salaam, Tanzania, the capital of Tanzania. Keep going. This is Pretoria, South Africa. We took that back from the crazy whites. But we haven't really gotten the wealth of that nation. And without that wealth, we're in trouble. Cairo, Egypt. Yes, Cairo, Egypt was in Africa when it was first built. It's still in Africa now, despite the who's out there ruling. The Democratic Republic of Congo, Kinshasa. Lagos, Nigeria. Yorubaland. Mount Kilimanjaro, Tanzania, East Africa. Stop right there, because that's important. Go back to that mountain. You see that mountain right there? Do you know there's ski lodges up there? And African people go skiing just like people anywhere in the world. They got snow-capped mountains, go ski, all right? But what's so cool about this mountain, at the bottom of the mountain, you can be in your bathing suit swimming and decide you want to take the afternoon ski. And you can do it all in one day. And we don't even think that these kinds of recreation take place there, or that there's ski mobiles on the lakes and all of these things. All of that is happening. People out in their little sailboats and stuff. That's going on in your Africa. People are not sitting there waiting for nobody to come and give them a life. Okay? They're not coming to give them a life. Go to the next one. Lake Nyanza stretches across 3 African countries, Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania. That's the one they named after this vicious animal called Victoria. She murdered more people in Africa than Hitler did, and we named the biggest lake in Africa after her. So, out of that lake, much of the water that ends up in the Nile River comes from that lake, and much of the water that ends up in that lake comes from these mountains. Here's another mountain, Mountain of the Moon in Uganda, East Africa. You'll find, if you go to Uganda, you'll find lodges and hotels all in the valley and the lakes around there. People are living a life that we don't even imagine, because we're still allowing our view of Africa to be framed by the people we call the enemy. You know, and we have to start learning about Africa for ourselves. And getting on those planes, instead of wasting our money in France and England and Holland and all those other places, even in the United States, get on that plane and go home and see what's going on with your brothers and sisters, establish relationships with families, get involved in families. Go to the next. Or the Nile River in Uganda, from that mountain, this water, which is called the White Nile, emanates into the main Nile. Go to the next one. This is just a picture of the Nile. Go to the next one. The Lake Tana up in Ethiopia is where we get the Blue Nile. Go to the next one. This is the Esped waterfalls in Ethiopia that really starts like little streams for miles. But by the time the streams get to this fall, it's this enormous force. And this leads as the Blue Nile into the Nile River. Again, another side of the Nile. Lake Niger, the Great Rift Valley in Kenya, East Africa. Keep going. Victoria Falls in Zimbabwe. Livingston Falls on the Great Congo River. You know, the plains. You know, they tend to make us think think Africa is the only rainforest and you can't do nothing because you're tangled in vines and stuff. Africa has every ecology in the world, and most of it is plains and savanna like this. Keep going. Keep going. Just wanted to show you, this is the rainforest, and the rainforest is one of the most significant part of your ecology. And unfortunately, we allow the cutting of timber and other things to go on, and we're destroying a lot of the rainforest, but thank God a lot of people are really moving heavily against that. I saw a move last week in, I think, Mozambique, where they really went out and stopped, and some of this organized crime that's coming. Many of the people that do the timbering in Africa, you'll find they come out of Italy, and it's a part of the international mafia thing, because you're talking about furniture making, furniture building, and you're talking about teak wood, mahogany, etc. Very expensive wood. So, history of Christianity in Africa, I wanted to run through that really quick, because Christianity is not something that is invented by white people. It was something that was given to the world by black people, but we allowed white people to not only infiltrate it, but to distort it, to pervert it and misrepresent it, and then give us back this crippled model that doesn't work. I put this up there because people put up all these symbols, but I don't see the symbol for voodoo up there. And it amazes me when we see where these things are all born. Now we know the sign that says Judaic, we know that's African. We know the sign that says Islamic, we know that's African. See that sign that says cross the Christian? You see that cross on the temples in Egypt thousands of years before Christianity, okay? You see this Judaic calendar, you see those candles, you see that in Egypt thousands of years before any Judaism. Go to the next one. The Egyptians were black, and they had the world's first known writing system. Okay, not the little marks they call cuneiform. How can you put that up against this? You know, cuneiform, which we did too, but that's something we did in the Tigris-Euphrates Valley. That was the black civilization. But this is what we're doing, coming up out of the Congo, coming up out of Uganda, coming out of Sudan, coming up out of Ethiopia, and manifesting itself in the place we call Egypt. So the pyramid text, go back one, go back. The pyramid text is the oldest written religious text in the world. No one had a copy of a religious document older than this document. And in this document, all of the things that we hear in the Torah, the Quran, and the Bible can be found. Go to the next one. Here, you see this nun, this thing called the nun. Now that is what is supposed to exist when nothing else exists. Okay? That in quantum physics we call liquid matter. And it shouldn't have been a tomb right there. It should have been Amen. Amen is the unknown factor that emanates out of the one existence. And out of Amen would emanate the Atum, which is energy, which is fire. And then Ra, which is another manifestation of energy and fire. And Shu, which is a manifestation. There's a whole metaphoric story about how Amen says, I created myself out of myself. I cause existence to exist. And when I realized that existence existed, I realized my daughter was beside me. His daughter is Ma'at, meaning order, balance, and harmony existed when I, the divine, realized I existed. And so, but I'm not going to go over this stage because that's a long thing. But just to give you a sense, what's in our literature, and we don't even discuss this literature because nobody tells us we got a literature. And then he says, I hiccup. The word hiccup in the Metaneggio in our language means I vibrate. Now they took that word in the Bible and call it the word. I made a sound. So our scripture said, I vibrate, and out of that vibration, life began. And I spat out Shu, which is what we call the gases of the space or outer space. And then I spat out Tepnut. Shu is a masculine element. Tepnut is the feminine element. One represented the gases and the space and the elements, and the other represented the moisture in space. And then Shu and Tepnut, as these cosmic elements, gave birth to Geb, which is Earth, and the bodies, the planetary bodies in the sky, which is Nut. And those two things would come together in terms of their energy manifestation and elemental manifestation, and they would give birth to the first human, which is Osiris and Set. And of course, it just goes on from there. So this would be what they would call Adam, and this would be what they would call Eve. Now this story is written at least about 25,000 years before anybody came up with an Adam and Eve concept. So why don't they tell you that your ancestors had all of these things as a way of explaining reality to themselves? And by the way, we didn't have any religions in Africa. We had a way of life. Our total way of life was centered around knowing that we were the divine. Okay? There's no God up in the sky in any African tradition. There's no mystery God, and Africa has no mystery system. Something is only a mystery when you don't know it. The minute you know it, it's no longer a mystery. Okay? And don't forget something as simple as that. Next. The Purim Haru, the book of the coming forth by day, the Egyptian, what the whites call the Egyptian book of the dead. I just wanted to show you this symbol. You see this symbol right there? The two cats and the sun in the middle. So one represents yesterday, one represents tomorrow, and the one in the middle represents today. That is the foundation of Freemasonry across the world. And so, go ahead. Huh? I didn't. Oh, I don't know what names. I'm not that smart. I know some things. Oh, okay. But I know the concept. And I'm a Freemason. I don't know if I'm free. But I'm a member of Cornerstone 37 Prince Hall Grand Lodge in New York State. But this symbol is the foundation for a whole school of knowledge. Freemasonry is not some secret society called the Illuminati that's trying to kill you all, okay? What Freemasonry is a group of people who have taken your knowledge on how to live and organize themselves for success in the world, and they're using it to live and organize themselves for success in the world while you're trying to figure out what's going on. Go to the next one. Again, the book of the coming forth by day. This one is interesting. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Let me see. You got, all together you have 12 persons, then you have God and the priest, and the rest make up the 12. So if you go to any court in America, you got the 12 jurors, you got the reference that this is all being done in the name of God, and you always have somebody who's supposed to be the spiritual judge. Now, if you go back, here's this man, Mr. Ani, he's died. So this is his wife with him. So his heart is here on the scale, in this pot, and a feather is over here. Now his heart represents his deed, his behavior in the world. And if his deeds is heavier than this feather, he goes to hell, or what the Europeans would later call hell. But in the African thing, you got this crocodile and hippopotamus and some other stuff, which is not in this particular scale. But above his head is his soul, his body, you know? And there's one that would be his spirit. But once he's like found innocent, because you can see the scale is balanced. Now the scale is symbolic of Ma'at. Above the scale is the feather of truth. And so that woman we call Ma'at with the feather and the band around her head, Westerners took her and made her Lady Justice, took the band off of her head and put it around her eyes. Took the scale of Ma'at, and says the American scale of justice. Took your concept of the judgment of character and behavior and made it their legal system. This writing up here, these are the laws of Ma'at, which the Americans use as the laws of their land. You got the 12 juries, you got the law, you got the judge, you got the court recorder, and you even have the person who will punish you if you're wrong. You know? It's more complex than that, but that's the simplest way to talk about it. So you get a sense that there's something that belongs to you that you know little or nothing about, that someone else is using to run their society successfully because they're running all over you. It doesn't matter whether they can't dance. It doesn't matter whether their hair's funny. It doesn't matter all the things we say about them. Guess what? They run a successful society. They build successful community. They build successful organizations using your body of wisdom to do it. Now what you gonna do? You need to learn your stuff. so you can then rebuild and reconstruct yourself. The Coffin Text is another one of our old books. I'm not going to go deep into Coffin Text, but there's no Bible yet, no Torah, no Quran, no Buddha, none of that stuff. These are the oldest texts in the world that's telling people how to behave ethically, morally, and principally, how to follow laws that lead to harmony and balance, how to organize relationship between a man and a woman, how to construct a family, how to raise children, how to build communities, how to build a nation state and be successful. That's what all of this stuff is about. It's not about getting out on your knee praying, pouring some libation, praying, killing some animals, praying. If that's all our stuff is about, we should have won a long time ago. That's not what it's about. Matter of fact, those things are peripheral. It's about the philosophical understanding of how the world, how nature and cosmology works. If you don't have an understanding of that, you'll be around here wishing for freedom for the next 100 generations. And wishes don't come true. Go to the next. This is the Book of Gates, just another one of those books. If you study the Book of Gates, you see we had already arrived at the 24-hour day, 12-hour half the day. We had already arrived at what we call minutes in time and hours in time. In short, we had created the clock and the calendar before the Europeans got out of the cave. Go to the next one. Go to the next one. Go to the next one. That's the Book of Gates. When we talk about nun is always black or dark blue woman described and looks like she's water because it represents what is called the primordial water, or what we now today call liquid matter. Out of the nun comes everything. And Amen, which we agree is the first known expression by ancestors of the divine, says of itself, I came into being out of myself. I created myself out of myself. And I created everything that my heart had desired. And when I created everything my heart had desired, I then expanded in it. This is all in the book of Becoming Forth by Day. Meaning I put what I am as the divine in everything that I've created. At the end of the dissertation by the God, it says that I came from my mother, Nun. So there's not a masculine ruling God, that's a white thing. Okay? In the African sense, the masculine said, I came forth from my mother. I'm the manifestation of the feminine. And that makes sense. Because I don't care how much you get into gender confusion, you ain't having no baby unless you put the two opposites together. Okay? And I know a lot of our people have been hurt, just like we've been pulled into other things that are damaging to us. I don't go hard on my brothers and sisters who caught up into that, because they are damaged just like many of us are damaged with alcohol and drugs and stealing and lying and all the other things we've got from being in this mess. Okay? But we need to understand what's not ours and what is ours. Go to the next. God, Amen, the hidden one. Because the concept of Amen means it's unknowable. It is out of this unknowable thing that has no beginning and has no end that we get everything we know. Go to the next. Just another symbol of Amen. Go back. Just show you concepts. Now, there was no man, God named Amen, right? Somebody made that statue and that painting as a facsimile. There was no man named Osiris, as much as a lot of people like to think it was. There was no woman named Isis, just like there was no man named Shango and no man named Ogun. And I'm a priest of Oya, but there was no woman with large running around the jungle named Oya. Okay? It's a concept. It is a set of principles that can be built into the character of any human being if you have the formula on how to construct your character. And that's what your history gives you. So the Kuk Neter means the qualities of the divine, represents darkness. It says in the beginning, when this is our ancestors who wrote these books. There's no God wrote these books and gave it to us, right? This is our ancestors discerning nature and writing down their understanding. And as they wrote it down, they were saying things was in darkness, just like when you put a plant in the ground, you know, that seed is in that darkness, then it breaks through into the light and grow. So in the early construct of what they call the essence of the divine, or people call gods, but they never call it gods. The word netta does not interpret as God into English. We do that so we can understand, given where we're at. But that's not what the word means. It means simply essence, an aspect of something. Go to the next. Okay, this is the next one, boundless. It says that the thing that we're calling the divine is not only encompassed of all the darkness, it encompasses of all the light, and it's boundless. Go to the next. The nectar symbol for light. That's one of the symbols of Horus the Father. Not to be mistaken in the metaphor. See, we use metaphor to tell stories. And there's a Horus the Son, who they patterned the whole Jesus thing after. That Horus the son of Isis is not the same as this one. This is one of the original creation. This is Horus the Father. And even though we mix up the metaphor, sometimes people tell the story and they think Horus the son is the one that's fighting with his uncle Set. No, it is this one that's having that dialogue in the metaphor. Now there's no Horus and there's no Set. What they're saying is that there's qualities in each one of us that contend for harmony. You know, there's something pulling you this way, there's something pulling you this way. You've got to know both things, and you've got to balance them in yourself in order to have harmony. And they simply gave names to it. So the god Ptah simply, I always loved this to Ptah, like he had a little afro, you know, back in the day. But there was no Ptah. This is a human being's facsimile. If the Ptah was a man, this is what he looked like, all right? Ptah represents matter. It says Ptah is the primordial hill. It rose up as a hill out of the water of Nun. So this represents solid matter emanating out of liquid matter. And that's a good dissertation in quantum physics if we wanted to go there with that. And of course, Shu, which is air, Tefnut, which is moisture. Keep going, keep going. I'm going to speed it up. Keep going. We see, let's go back to the first Madonna. Now this becomes important for all of our discussion. The first Madonna and child worship alone, and now Aset, the Holy Mother, and Haru, the child born of Immaculate Conception, to God the Son. Now this is what got us all messed up. Because we got the Jesus thing all wrong. Because the white folks that we gave the wisdom to got it all wrong. Beat us up in the wars of the Crusades and other things. Refashioned the thing and gave it back to us all wrong. And we walking around here seeing everybody dying, we still honoring the same silly things. Everybody's dying. People are hungry. Girls being raped. People on drugs. People going to prison. People can't get jobs. People got cancer. You saying, oh Lord, I love you. Everything gonna be just fine. And it ain't fine. Because you got it all wrong. I don't care how dressed up you get. I don't care how pretty the building you build while people are living in poverty and can't even get the roaches out of their space. And you got a cathedral built to a fantasy instead of building a house to create a healthier board for humans and then say you love God. Something wrong. That our ancestors were saying that the man, the woman, and the child, when the combination occurs that create the child, that's the image of God. Not a man, not a woman, not a child, but the man, woman, child is the image of God. Who in here came into being because of God? I guess you can technically say, well, God was behind the mother and God was behind the father. You could technically say that, but every one of y'all came into being because a man had sex with a woman. And every one of you came into being because you went through that test tube thing in the womb of a woman, and you entered the world through the vagina of a woman. Now you show me another creation story. Stop playing with your mind just for 1 minute. Don't think what I just said sound gross or anything. Because that's how most of us old enough to have given birth to children. And all of us was given birth to. How did that occur? And how did somebody get you so far off of reality? So you need to find a way back to reality through studying your history. The man, the woman, the child is the symbol of the divine. The man, the woman, the child is the symbol of the divine. The child represents the possibility of tomorrow. That's what resurrection is about. Because when you have resurrection, it means that this new coming into being is bringing every one of your possibility that you didn't realize as the mother and the father and giving it a new opportunity. You understand? But in our story, we try to explain this. But if you miss the story, you don't understand. We could go into the church and use it if we knew what we were doing. Because it's not a foreign story that somebody else have just reinterpret the meaning of the story. Go to the next one. Oh, this is the next one. Now, what you're going to see from here on in, I just want to show you how black the Egyptians were, right? This is Osiris, an image they painted of Osiris. Now, does he look European? When we watch TV and National Geographic and stuff, we see all of these white images representing Kemet, representing Egypt. This is Osiris. If anybody knows the story about Osiris, in every Masonic lodge, every Knights Templars, every Odd Fellow, every Knights of Pythias, and on, you got to be raised from a dead level to a living perpendicular on the square. No disrespect to my brothers, because I know I'm not the only brother in here. And I'm not going to say things that is inappropriate. But we got to say enough to teach our people. You know? So I hope y'all understand. And I do wear a very fancy necklace, which gives me a lot of authority other people don't have. In case any of the brothers have a question, they can talk to me afterwards, and I'll explain the necklace I wear. So, you see this man here, Osiris. He's not a real man. This is a facsimile of a concept, set of principles and ideas that represents what manhood should be. So we need to learn the story. Not only represent manhood in the singular, but it represents what men should do and how they build, sustain, and create. And so they paint themselves and sculpt themselves as Africans. And this thing in Washington, D.C., they call the Washington Masonic Monument, there it is, in Africa, all those many thousands of years ago. Did they explain that to you? One is standing in front of the Vatican. Did they explain that we took an African spiritual symbol and we put it in front of the Vatican and put Christ on top of it while we saying the Africans are demons and they're, what's the word, the pagans? We got the most pagan of all the symbols in the world sitting in the middle of Vatican Square with the Christ on top of it. Go to the next one. Oh, the 12 divine disciples of God on earth, or the original 12 disciples known as the Netteru. Now, I'm not going to break it down, but y'all find this. You can actually Google this online and get a copy of it. Then interpret the name of each one of those things, which is easy to do today. You can actually go online and get all of the Medu Neter, the language of Kemet. They got it all out there now. And you can see. So this is the 12 disciples. Now these are not 12, these are 12 symbols of elements of any human character. So if you study the 12 disciples of Christ, you see that each one of them represent a quality and attribute of the Christ character. So that he wasn't talking about one man with 12 buddies. He was talking about one man with 12 qualities, and then he found one brother that exemplified each one of those qualities, and he magnified himself. Go to the next one. The ancient Egyptians were black, and they painted themselves as such. And no, that's not dreadlocks. We only call it dreadlocks because the British were down in Jamaica. Our brothers and sisters, the priests and others, beat the hell out of the British, and we were locked. So they dreaded the lock-head one, meaning they feared the lock-head one. Then we ended up calling our hairstyle dreadlock. This is just sacred African locks. You know how we arrived at these locks? By this time, we're twisting it in Egypt. But in the beginning, we arrived because we didn't have no doggone comb. And if you don't have no comb, your little black hair gonna lock down. Yeah. All right? But after a while, we learn how to brush it out, comb it out, and twist it. And you'll even see paintings in Egypt where the women are twisting the locks. You understand? So that is your hairstyle. It's a very sacred hairstyle. In Ghana and Botswana and other places today, and Nigeria, when you go into the priesthood for that first 5 years of study, you have to lock your hair. You get the option to cut it afterwards if you want to at the end of your 5 years in some community. Some people keep it, most people cut it. Go to the next one. Now this painting is from the tomb of Ramses III, 1200 BCE. This is in a book by Sheikh Anthem. It shows that the Egyptians perceived themselves as black, and that represented themselves as such without possible confusion with the Indo-European or the Semites. This is the representation of the races in minute detail, which guarantees the realism of the colors. Throughout their entire history, Egyptians never dreamed of representing themselves by type B or D. This is how the Egyptians represented themselves. This is on the wall of the tomb today, which you can go and see. Oh, come on, light. Okay, but that's the first one. The second one is the Asiatic person. The next one is the rest of the Africans. And the next one is the European. They drew this. This is not something we made up. This is something on the tomb of Ramses today. This is how they presented themselves. So why are people lying about what they look like when the whites have this history? They've got these pictures in their museum hidden away. Giap was able to get it. And you can go to the tomb and see it today. Go to the next one. These are your black peoples in ancient Africa. These people are from the area called Karnak in Sudan, and they bring the circle represents gold. They're bringing gifts and other things to the king from the south. And so this is how we painted ourselves back then, wearing our white, nice linen cloth. We didn't wait for no cloth to be imported from Holland 25,000 years ago. We made our cloth right there for ourselves. When they didn't know how to make cloth, they were wearing animal skins. And there we are. This I love. Go to Abydos. Abydos is the oldest city in Upper Egypt. Upper Egypt is south, okay? Lower Egypt is north, because Africa is high in the middle and it slopes down to the Mediterranean and the Indian Ocean and the Atlantic. See this temple? This is the Pillar Temple. So any brothers or sisters in the lodge, we did not get the Pillar Temple concept from the Ionians and the Dorians, or the Greeks, or the Romans. This temple is 3,000 years older than the Greeks. So when we talk about the great pillows that we walk between, whose pillows? It's your mother's and father's pillows. And we need to understand that. So this is just one. But this one is so grand and enormous. Imagine what it took to build this thing. That's stone, not cement. They didn't have cement yet. So this stone temple, the Greeks are still living in caves. The Romans are still living in caves. And your ancestors has built this temple, which is still there today for you to see. This one, I don't know why this little light is playing games on me, but this one is one of the biggest temple complexes in the world, and yet no one talks about it. They show you this little funny little thing they call the Parthenon. You can fit the Parthenon in here 100 times, okay? This is the some people call it the Grand Lodge at Waset, but in the ancient days it was called the University of Isut. This is where the children of the kings and others of great royalty went to study astronomy, astrology, medicine, and geometry, and other sciences, language. And this is just a part of the complex. On the other side, you have the great temple of Karnak, which is bigger than this complex. And it's all in a place called Luxor. And so, if you know your history, now when this is built, there is no Greece yet. There's no Rome, there's no Homer, there's no Plato, there's no Aristotle, there's none of these people exist yet. Okay? Your parents felt this. They showed you that they're black. They left their painting and their sculptures to let you know who they are. And out of this complex, if you really get to see all of it, the whole concept of a university, the Harvard, the Cambridge, the Yale, comes from this. Comes from this. You even see little children with backpacks. That's right, damn it. We didn't even get them a backpack. The kids are walking around and those on the walls painted with their backpacks on. And they got little statues in the museum. They're wearing backpacks, going to school with their book bags on their back. People just steal everything from you. Yeah. And see, imagine, this thing is about, I guess, 10, 15 stories high. You can take the Parthenon, and if you put it here, it would come to about right here. There is some model of a Greek attempt to build a temple near it, and it's almost invisible. And this is only a small part of it. This is the inner sanctum where you went to do the last of your great studies, which would probably be what we would call a PhD here today when you did your higher studies. Go ahead. This pharaoh Hatshepsut, this is one of the female pharaoh's tomb. What's extraordinary about this is this temple is constructed out of that mountain. All the technology we have today, we can't do this. All right? She wasn't the first female pharaoh. She's just one of the most well-known female pharaohs. She wasn't the queen, she was the pharaoh. Go to the next. Wuhan Fortress, Aswan, Egypt, 1700 BC. Now this is a reconstruction from the writing and the fragments they have of Wuhan. But when this is built in Egypt, down by Aswan, there is nothing in England yet. They're still painting themselves blue and running around in the bush. They have nothing. So we didn't copy this from them. This is your ancestor stuff. Go to the next one. And of course, this replica in Washington, D.C. Go to the next. And this scene in Washington, go back, you're moving too fast. Don't try to think for me. Let me tell you how to think for me. I'm trying to think for the brother, you know? But you see this scene, the reflecting pool in Washington, the great monument. Now go back to Africa. Where did they get it from? Go to the next one. Go back. There it is. Go to the next one. There it is again. When they built Washington, D.C., America was supposed to be the new Egypt. That's what they were building. They're replicating your civilization. I remember when I was going to Mecca back in '74, I had met a couple of nice Masonic brothers who liked me because I liked this cute little girl named Georgette Miller. He used to call Georgette Doll Baby. That girl was fine. And she was going to a debutante, a cotillion. And I was working as a security guard. I was 21. I had no money, $50 a week, working all week long. So the brothers knew it, so these brothers said, look, come here, boy, get in the car. They drove me to the Bronx, they rented me a tuxedo, some patent leather shoes. I was nice. They said, oh, you got to make sure you take your stand back on Monday on time. So I went on to the cotillion, I had Georgette on my arm, I was the finest little brother up in there. So we were,